Approximately 2.5 years ago, I was diagnosed with a drop metatarsal by a podiatrist, and I was having a great deal of pain. What happened was I was given three options from the podiatrist, one of which was a cortisone injection, which I opted not to use. The other was ultrasound, and the other was an orthotic. So I opted to do the ultrasound, and it was very intermittent relief of the pain. It might have lasted from the time I left the podiatrist's office until the time that I had gotten home. Maybe it lasted a few hours the next day, but invariably the pain would always come back. It was a chronic condition. I started working on the 1-minute life repair system and did that for 21 days and had remarkable results with that process. In my business, I entertain a lot. I need to wear heels every once in a while. I do an enormous amount of running around the city, up and down subways, buses, client offices, and I need to be very comfortable, and the pain was virtually non-existent.
Can you just go through the emergency, just be aware of the recognition of emergency without going through the rest of it? The answer to that exactly, of course, is yes, you can do that. Do you want to inquire about what has sourced the emergency? Is that of interest to you? So there are conditioned responses that are generating the emergencies, misconceptions, time, money, children, all those interesting things of life. So what do you do when all of these things are working on us and are preying on us? We mentioned that when you take care of one, you're taking care of all. Just work on one. If you choose to work on many, you find yourself really maybe dissipating your energies because it's forcing you to concentrate on so many areas of your life. So you pick any one that you wish and use that as the vehicle for changing your relationship to the emergency state. If you start changing your relationship to an emergency state, one, it's going to ripple over into the others. It's going to affect all the other states. Because when you change your response to an emergency, you're changing your response to all emergencies. By changing it to one, you're changing it to all. Because an emergency is an emergency, and whatever powers it, whatever fuels it, it really doesn't matter. It's that you become aware of it, and since you know, let's say, it's my children here. What is my misconception about the children? If I don't do this toward them, then, and you've got to come back to an if-then response. The most destructive cause and effect statement that exists in the world, if-then. If I don't take care of them in this manner, then they will turn out to be like this. Future talk, projections of time, place, and circumstance, creating an emergency, which I hatched through my own mental machinations, and I've made up a story. And believe the story that I have spewed out to be true. You treat the emergency state as an if-then phenomenon, because the question always comes back to what's been my perception, my misperception, and my misconception. Commonly, although we've talked about other misconceptions, commonly, if-then occurs in the emergency state. And it's a projection into a time, place, and circumstance that doesn't exist. So it's necessary to regard your relationship to the future as probability and possibility, not something that's an isness now. Many people, when you speak to them, who are particularly focused on logic, when you tell them that the future doesn't exist, there's a hard time in accepting this. But they have to grapple with it. Because the truth of the matter is, the future doesn't exist. It's only potential. So we don't know. But since we take the if-then approach, or we project into that time and circumstance and treat it as though it's now, we want to become powerful. We want to control life. So we treat power as control. Because if I know the future, then I am as great and as powerful as God. So I want to usurp that knowledge and power to be able to know and control what's going to be. And that's the focus that is at play with us in doing this. We want to accept that we are simply here to deal with what's in front of us, nothing more than that. So the future is not in our hands. We don't want it to be, we don't need it to be, it's not necessary. That's another element of trust and faith. A faith that the invisible world is here for me. and it wants me to live. It wants me to live. The invisible world, as it's constituted under the aegis of the Holy One, the One Mind, wants us to live. It doesn't want us to die. There are forces that want us to die. And this whole resurrective process of the Phoenix has been about coming back to life and moving along in a way to overcome the forces of death, to continue in life, wherever that'll lead us. And we don't know where it'll lead us, but it does have the possibility of a restorative function to bring us back to the Edenic existence. Eternal bliss, no disease, and I use the term in quotes, no death, happiness, balance, and continuous joy and truth. That seems like a nice parlay, to bet on. If you're interested. You want to give it a whirl and experiment to find out if this is true. We don't know. You want to find out if it works for you. And when you see it working, it gives you the impetus to continue trying to go on with it in that way.